This the people party.
Live from the Blue Note. Live from the Blue Note. Live from the Blue Note. Live from the Blue Note.
Live from the Blue Note. Come on. Peace and love, party people. It's Talib Kweli, the BKMC. You are now in tune with the world's best podcast, and we keep going on and on and on. As we continue on, rest in peace, Frank Jigger. You know what I'm saying? The People's Party. That's right. Today we are still in New York City at the legendary Blue Note. We've been having a good time. Thank you for everybody who's been following the movement. Word is bond. Of course, today we're still going to do the deep dives on a New York City artist because, you know, we was in LA for a long time and we didn't get a lot of New York City artists. So today's guest represents New York City hip hop to the fullest, but not just New York City hip hop, the world of hip hop in general. Our guest today is one of the most renowned, iconic figures in music. He's not just a big influence on me. He's a huge influence on the whole culture. He is one half of the legendary hip-hop duo Mobb Deep. He is consistently ranked as one of the top best hip-hop producers of all time. But let's not let that overshadow the fact that he's an incredible lyricist. He set the bar with his beats and his lyrics in terms of how New York City is supposed to sound. With Mobb Deep, he's given us an unparalleled run of albums that include Juvenile Hell, the infamous Hell on Earth, Murder Music, Infamy, America's Nightmare, Blood Money, the infamous Mobb Deep, Word is Bond. As a solo artist, we got The Kush, Hidden Files, 13, The Silent Partner with Alchemist, In the Name of Prodigy with the homie Flea Lord, Extreme Measures, Dark Low, Future of the Streets with Nice to Future, and a new joint with my man Styles P. He has iconic tracks with Jadakiss, Notorious B.I.G., Nas, Lil' Kim, LL Cool J. They sleep on his production. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Havoc, for Mobb Deep, and a place to be. Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hav.
Word.
Thank you for doing this with us.
Nah, thank you for having me.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's been a long time coming.
Yes, a long time.
This show is designed to give people like you your flowers.
Thank you.
So we appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Now, we just sat down and you told me that your cousin worked with my mom's?
Yeah. My cousin, he's a professor in college, and I believe it's in Queens or somewhere. I forget where it's at. But he was like, yo, you know, I work with Kweli's moms. I was like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you know what I'm saying? And he was like, yeah, she's the boss. And
she is the boss.
I was like, for real? Wow. So it's a small world.
Yeah, shout out to Dr. Brenda Green. And then I shared with you that the world is even smaller than we thought because my cousin Noel was on one of the Mobb Deep album covers, and that was a moment for me in hip-hop that made me feel like I could make it. I'm like, look at Noel sitting there with Mobb Deep.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
We call him Money No because I was like, Noel. I'm like, Money No?
I didn't know that. You know, it's funny because you grow up with people and you have these childhood experiences with them, and then when they become men, they put away childish things and they develop their own life. Like, I haven't really seen Noel in a long time. This was my guy when we was kids. I used to go, his father's my godfather. I used to spend a lot of time with them. But even this conversation makes me want to tap in with family more because I didn't even know he called himself Money No.
Word up.
Word is bond. So you were born in Brooklyn, like myself.
Yep.
But raised in Queensbridge.
Yes, indeed.
So much that you were associated with Queensbridge, the 41st side of things.
Yes.
How did you get from Brooklyn to Queens?
Well, you know what I'm saying? My mother, you know, her family was raised in Brooklyn. So, you know, when she had me, you know, initially she was living her and her sister was living in Marcy Projects.
Okay.
So, you know, I was there for like, you know, the first year of my life. And then, you know, she moved to Queens.
No doubt. Project to project.
Project to project, for real.
Word is bond. Queensbridge, Marcy is famous in Brooklyn for just being Marcy. And of course, Jay-Z. But Queensbridge, that might be the most famous projects of all time. It's the largest projects in America. What were the highs and lows of living and growing up in Queensbridge?
I would say the highs in, you know, growing up in Queensbridge was like all of the friends that I had, you know what I mean? It was one big city, you know what I mean? And
it's like a city inside of a city.
Yeah, a city within a city in Long Island City. And, you know, you just get
Wow, so it's a city inside of a city, inside of a city.
Inside of Long Island City.
Right.
And, you know, just growing up, we had a lot of fun. We didn't even realize that we was, you know, all that poor and all of that. Like, you know what I'm saying? We just had fun. But, of course, when you get older and then, you know, the cons You know, when you standing next to somebody that got beef and they just getting shot at, and you know what I'm saying? Shots is going off without no warning. You know, those are the hazardous aspects of it, but, you know, we survived.
Word. It's crazy you say that because the projects, when they first built, were designed for better living for white people across the country. But then, you know, you had, of course, you know, white flight when black people started getting a little bit of money and black people started moving in projects and white people lead the projects. And then once the projects in the country become black, then we don't have the resources anymore.
Right.
Shout out to Marley Marl and all the artists from Queens. The Realist with Kool G Rap. Such an incredible Mobb Deep record. Kool G Rap was an OG, a veteran at that time, but his verse sounded like a young, hungry dude.
Word, straight up. I mean, you know, G Rap, I remember listening to him like back in '88, you know what I mean, when dudes was slinging crack, like, it was in full swing, you know what I mean? And he was like the voice of that era. And to have him on that record with us, I mean, that just kind of like, I was in awe.
What was it like seeing the juxtaposition of admiring the flashiness of the street culture, but also at the same time you had hip hop like G Rap, like the Juice Crew, like Shantae and them documenting this stuff?
I mean, it was priceless, you know, to have that, to have a front row seat to that, to see, you know, Marley Marl, Sister Living on My Block, to see Roxanne and Shantae coming through and, you know, projecting the lyrics that they was projecting. It was an inspiration, you know what I'm saying? Just to see it, to have that front row seat.
Juice Crew is so important.
Very important.
Nikki, I want to ask Nikki a question. Can you pull up a chair here next to Seth? This is my friend Nikki Duncan Smith. She's a hip hop aficionado, and you know Nikki.
Yes.
Okay. Nikki, you was telling me something about Have grandfather, right? Can you tell me what you were saying?
I was saying Havoc has an iconic grandfather, and what blows my mind is that he also had an iconic partner who had an iconic grandfather. And if, you know, the overlap of that musical genius through their genealogy, you know, both of them were iconic musicians, their grandparents. And then to find out that they were in a group. And both
that's crazy.
Iconic musicians. It's crazy.
So both you and P grandfathers were jazz musicians?
Yeah, but I didn't know that my grandfather was a jazz musician until just now, you know what I'm saying?
Really?
And I didn't even get a chance to tell Prodigy that. Because, you know, growing up when I was growing up, I was raised by somebody that wasn't my biological father, but he was my pops, you know what I'm saying? He raised me. But I always was on a quest to find, you know, who my biological father was. So in that search, I found out that my biological father's father was this legendary jazz musician by the name of Bill Dixon.
Wow.
And, you know, that kind of, that messed me up in the head, you know what I mean? And then everything just kind of all started making sense, you know what I mean? About, you know, my love for music and, you know, it's in my DNA.
That's crazy. That makes a lot of sense. The early Mobb Deep records, you know, your production style, you could go anywhere. You could do underground hip hop, you could do pop, you could do R&B, you could go anywhere. But those early Mobb Deep records had a lot of popping and scratching on those records. A lot of dirt, actual physical dirt and grime on the records. I've heard you talk about broken records on the floor of your apartment.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And you sampling like fucked up, dirty ass jazz records.
Yeah, they just like right there on the floor, and I'm just grabbing them and just like, all right, just go. And you know, the record got that grimy feel.
And it's grimy, but you know, jazz was looked at as grimy when you know we look at jazzmen as part of the American experience and the greatest musical contribution besides hip hop. You know, really just black music in general, blues, jazz, gospel, all of that. But it's crazy to me that your fathers were jazz musicians, and then y'all end up in the projects in a situation where you're not supposed to make it. You're not supposed to make it out of there, but somehow you take these jazz, not even knowing your pops was into jazz, you got jazz on your floor, you know what I'm saying? You sample it, And y'all create these sonic landscapes, and now we here at the jazz club at the Blue Note talking about your career. You know what I'm saying?
You know, it's like the ancestors just giving us that little nudge to succeed. You know what I mean? And you know, from the other side. I mean, I can't see it no other way.
Word is bond. Now let's talk about School of Art and Design.
Word.
It's a lot of fly shit going on. New York City high schools is a whole different thing than the rest of the country.
Straight up. Word.
No, was Q-Tip at? He was at Murray Bertram. But Art and Design, that's where you met Prodigy at, right?
That's where I met P. 57th Street and 2nd Avenue. You know what I mean? I was in awe going to that school because I went to school with so many great artists. I mean, we was kids, but these dudes was drawing like grown people, like grown folks, you know what I mean? And those are the people that I went to high school with. I loved it. And to this day, I'm thankful that I went there. And like you said, New York schools is on a whole nother level. Like, there's a lot that we don't have when we come from the hood, but one thing that we could count on sometimes is some high schools that, you know, to propel us to another level. Yeah,
I went to Brooklyn Tech. And we used to come to schools like Art and Design to go look at, get phone numbers. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I would cut school and go to somebody else's high school.
Straight up. Straight up. Straight up.
No doubt. I heard you talk about how Prodigy had mad jewelry on.
Word.
He knew he was going to be a rap star.
I don't know if he knew he was going to be a rap star, but he looked like one. You know what I mean? When I first met him, he looked like Baby Slick Rick because he had all that jewelry, and you could hear him coming up the stairs or through the hallway. You know, I used to be like, yo, who the fuck is that? Like, who, you know what I'm saying? Like, who that? You know, we had friends in common, and so we met eventually.
And y'all started Poetical Prophets.
Yes, we did.
It's a great name for a rap group.
I get a lot of, you know, flag for it, but...
It's a good name.
I love it.
I still stand by it.
We the Poetical Prophets.
That's right.
That's fine.
It's better than Pharoah Monch and Prince Poetry first group name.
What's that?
Simply Too Positive.
Simply Too...
He said Paul C told him, you organize confusion, bro. Now, rest in peace to Prodigy. Absolutely. A lot of people don't know this, but you lost a brother very young.
Yeah.
Rest in peace to your brother. Can you talk to us a little bit about if this is true? Do you feel like that loss helped you prepare for losing Prodigy?
I definitely wouldn't say that it prepared me. I would say that the loss of my brother at that age, it kind of made me cold. You know what I mean? It did. You know, it just made me like really not. You know, other people's pain, I probably didn't really feel it.
How old were you?
I was 21. I was 21. My brother was my best friend. And you know, leading up to Prodigy's passing, you don't get used to it. You know what I mean? You never get used to it because, I mean, I knew Prodigy since I was 15 years old, you know, and so I basically grew up with Prodigy, you know what I'm saying? And he was like a brother to me, you know what I mean? It definitely, my brother's death didn't prepare me for that. I just think that when you lose somebody close, it's just always a different, genuine feeling, you know, so, and you learn how to deal with it.
No doubt. Well, I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing your story with us and talking to us about all this.
No doubt.
Prodigy was dealing with health issues, sickle cell for the whole career, for his whole life, right?
Yeah.
In what ways did that shape him having to deal with these health issues, shape how Mobb Deep had to move in a space where people don't have a lot of respect for someone who might be dealing with something like that?
Well, you know, Prodigy really didn't promote his ailment too much, you know, his sickness. It was privy to us because we was around him, so we really didn't promote it, I mean, like that. So we didn't really have to move in a different type of way. But I will say that when he would get sick sometimes, we would be on the road, or, you know, so we would have to like cancel shows sometimes, or I would have to perform by myself, or if we was shooting a video and he got sick, we would have to postpone the video, you know, things. So we learned to work around it because it's one of those things that it could come out of nowhere, you know, those sickle cell crises. And, you know, we just learned to live with it.
Yeah. Your story reminds me of Q-Tip and Fife
Right.
Because Phife had them health issues.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Diabetes, and there was times when they're on the road. You know, I remember watching Dennis Miller live, and I was excited to see Tribe Called Quest perform, and they was like, you know, Phife is not here. What happened to him? And Tip and Ali, it looked hard on them to have to still do that show, because at that you're young. You know, at this age,
Right.
we know what's more important than the business. But when you're young, it feels like, man, this is our shot. I mean, it's crazy now because I don't even fuck with Dennis Miller. I don't even like him as a... I used to watch Saturday Night Live, of course, you know what I'm saying? But on a political spectrum, we don't agree. You know what I'm saying? But I remember, like, that was a big deal to me. Wow, hip-hop is on Dennis Miller. Hip-hop is on late night. And Phife and Tip had some internal issues. Well documented. But right before Phife passed, him and Tip got together and they started working on those internal issues and they started working on music together. And I feel like that's similar with you and P.
I was just about to say that. That sounds similar to, you know, things that me and Prodigy went through. I mean, I think that when you start a group so young, right? Yeah, you know, you're in your teenage years and then you become men. You know, it's only natural that, like, y'all become who y'all are and y'all might become, like, different people. Y'all might have the same, you know, common goals and y'all like music and all that, but y'all becoming men, so y'all have your own different priorities and, you know what I mean? So y'all kind of grow apart, but you're still brothers. So, you know, me and P had our differences, you know what I'm saying? Absolutely. But we always kept the group going, you know what I mean? For the sake of the group, we kept the group going and we could tolerate each other, you know what I'm saying? Because they was just differences, you know what I mean? Some, you know, at one point it did come to a crazy head, you know what I mean? Where I probably jumped out the window with things, but you know, I apologized. I forgave myself for it. And I spoke to Pete about it and we continued on with the group. Took a little hiatus. And it's crazy because right before he passed, and I know this sounds like cliche-ish, but I promise you, like, days before he passed, me and him had gotten closer than we ever gotten before. Wow. I mean, we was in Whole Foods shopping for, you know what I'm saying, good food, you know what I mean? Like, you know, salads and all that crazy stuff. And, you know, boom, a couple of days later, he passed away. So, you know, I look at it like, you know, his spirit, you know, his soul must have knew that it was going, and he was just, you know what I'm saying, like, really connected with me on a level from the beginning of when we met. It's like I felt that vibe from him, like when I first met him, like how we was just meeting each other on the weekends, just hanging out, like on some like bro shit, like, you know what I mean? And I was happy to share that moment with him before he passed, and you know, I always love him and I'll miss him.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Prodigy is so important to hip hop. What he has added to the game cannot be understated in any way. And then, you know, shout out to Tribe Called Quest, because it's like, even with that, like when I listen to those 5 bars on that last Tribe Called Quest album, I'm on that album. It's like, man, it was supposed to happen this way. You know, everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. Q-Tip was hovering around all over the Infamous. The Drink Away the Pain is such a great metaphorical song. What can you tell me about working with Q-Tip in the era and what you might have learned from him?
Well, you know, working with Q-Tip back then, in those days, it was like truly like a blessing for me because, you know, I really didn't know too much about production, you know what I mean? I just knew what I saw and I would just try to copy it. So for him to come around and help me with the production was just like, it was priceless. And, you know, that's what brothers do, you know what I'm saying? He came through, he's like, I got you know what I mean? You know, he would throw me some samples and you know, and I would watch him do the drums and, you know, because I was a super fan of Tropical Quest, period.
We all was.
Their music was like sharp as a tack, like, you know, those snares and everything. So, you know, I already was just enamored by anything that he did. So to have him come through, you know, I absorbed it like a sponge and I'll never forget it. And he's is the coolest, most down-to-earth person, as you know. You know what I'm saying? You worked with him. And there's nobody like Q-Tip. So it was no wonder Tribe Called Quest was the way they was and as successful as they was. You know, look at the elements within the group, you know what I'm saying? Phife, Q-Tip, Ali, Shaheed Muhammad, you know what I mean?
Word up. Shout out to Jerobi, too.
Right, Jerobi.
Robe.
Word,
the Jedi.
Word.
I'm realizing now, that's why Queens be winning in the hip-hop circle.
Why?
Because every other borough was like really fragmented with their crews. And now I'm learning that Q-Tip, LP just be sneaking into the session here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. As Queens MCs, it's always a shout out for another Queen MC.
Yeah.
It's a very tight circle as far as Queens MCs go.
I agree, and not just Queensbridge, but
Right,
it's
no, right,
the
not
whole
just
Queens.
right, the whole Queens.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Let's talk Juvenile Hell for a second because he just brought up Large Professor, and Large Professor and Primo was working on Juvenile Hell.
Yes.
I feel like that's an underrated project.
Absolutely, it totally was, but I wouldn't have it no other way because it helped us learn. Right, we learned a valuable lesson. We had the likes of Large Professor, Primo. You know, early on getting the record deal, Primo will come to the crib and to Prodigy's crib in Long Island to just chill with us and vibe with us. You know, people don't do that these days. You know what I'm saying? Just to, you know, they just want to check. They want to sell you a beat, get the money, and boom. But you know, Primo will come vibe with us. Large Professor was throwing his, you know, professionalism down. You know, and you know they kind of showed us the ropes for what would be to come later on.
It makes sense that y'all sound starting with them two makes sense. You had a sickle on the album cover. Where you get a sickle from? Like a Grim Reaper.
You know, when you're a fan of hip hop, when you're a student of hip hop, you looking at hip hop and you like, all right, P, this is what we're gonna do. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm gonna get the sickle.
So, because, you know, early on, we was looking at a couple of the fads that was out there, you know, like Tretch with the, I guess it was a machete or
Tretch
something.
he had the machete, and he had the padlock.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah,
No, but he did. He walked around with the. He would perform with it. RZA had the sword.
Right. So, you know, that was the age of the props.
The age of the props.
You know, who got the props?
Right.
So, you know, that was a grand idea. And those things, man, those things could kill somebody. Like, they was actually made. I was like...
That's what the Grim Reaper carried.
Yeah, today, those...
The nigga
right.
Def carried that shit. That's the weapon of choice of Def. Def's weapon of choice. I feel like in that era, y'all also helped to make Timberlands popular because y'all had the Timberlands on full display on the album cover.
Straight up.
Was there ever like... I remember seeing in like Rap Masters or Word Up, Bismarcky with the 40 belows up to here.
Yeah.
But before that, I don't remember the first time I seen Tim's like prominently displayed.
Right, and they did not cut the check. You know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
They didn't cut the check, but you know, later on they caught on. A little too late, but it is what it is. Tim's, you know, as you know, in the hood, we love our Tim's. You know what I'm saying? Before that, it was the insulated boots, but Tim's was definitely a part of hip hop culture.
No doubt. Now, if you went to high school in New York City, the scariest place in the world was Spofford.
Yes.
And y'all talk about Spofford on this album, and that's a deep cut. You got a song called Locked to Spofford.
Word.
And the rhyme scheme on it early with the so in the meantime, I got an ox in my pocket.
Right.
Because I'm locked in Spofford. That's an ill bar. You know what I'm saying? It takes us behind the scenes because, like, for people who don't know, Spofford was like a jail, but for the youth.
Yeah, right.
What made you want to detail that element?
Well, you know, a lot of my friends got locked up and was sent to Spofford. You know what I mean? And after the stories they was telling me, that's definitely a place I didn't want to go to.
Right.
But it was something and that I never went to. But I mean, I heard so many stories. I visualized it. I pretty much knew what it was. And we all of us from the hood, we kind of know. We know some friends that was bad and they went through there and they came back and they told the stories. And a lot of the stories involved them having the razors in their mouth, having to spit them and cut people. And some of them, our friends coming home with cuts on their faces.
Right.
You know, so that was something that, you know, as a poetical prophet, we are going to...
I like the callback.
You know what I'm saying? We are going to talk about and we're going to, you know, shed light on situations like that because, you know, somebody in probably Kansas or, you know, Cali probably didn't hear those kind of places. So we was just painting a picture of where we lived.
Spofford was like a literal juvenile hell.
Word.
And what was great about that record is that the record is gangsters, it's violent, but it's also like y'all kids on this record. So you're talking about what kids would talk about, like the peer pressure record.
Right.
It was a very responsible record. Because it's like y'all understand the context of why we going through this. Let's talk about the Infamous, though. tell me if I'm correct with this, but the infamous is sort of the exception to the rule, whereas a lot of times the people involved in the label side of things get involved and they mess up the project. But I feel like with the infamous, from Steve Rifkin to Scott Free to Matty C, that their involvement actually helped the project. Do you agree?
Right, I would agree 100%, 1000%. Our premise, you know, to sign into Loud Records, Steve Rifkin told us wholeheartedly from the beginning that he would let us, we have full reigns to do whatever we wanted to do, right? But then at the same token, we had Scott Free and Matty C, who was assisting us in creating the album. And like I said, I didn't know too much about production, so to have Scott Free and Matty C kind of like, you know, helping me and guiding me, like they took me to my first record convention to buy, you know, samples, you know what I mean? Like vinyl, you know what I mean? And without them taking me there wouldn't be a Shook Ones record, because that's where I got the break drum for Shook Ones. So their involvement was priceless.
Yeah, and that's rare, because most times industry dudes be corny. You know? For real, these dudes added on in the right way. And Shook Ones, I mean, that's such a iconic record. That might be one of the best
hip-hop records of all time.
or just best music records of all time.
No, that record to me is like top 10 hip-hop records.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that I met Prodigy and told him. I met him and I told him. Because wherever you're at, when you play that record, I'm going crazy. Me by myself, I'm singing all around. I got the cup in my hand like the video. I'm like,
Right.
Everything, everything that Prodigy did.
Right.
But I agree with you, Talib. I think that it's one of the best songs, period.
Yeah.
Despite the genre. Like,
It
holds up with
it's outside.
Bob Dylan and all of them.
Yeah.
100%.
Y'all made the stove faint.
But you know, that's part 2. That's not the original.
Right.
Right.
I heard that on Stretch and Barbino when I first heard it.
Right.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh, what is this? Stab your brain with your nose bone?
Yeah.
Very visual.
P's.
Painting them real pictures.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you saw how Shook Ones was utilized in 8 Mile?
Oh man, I was open. You know what I mean? Just to put it simple, I was open because at that point I wasn't really used to our records being inside of movies. You know what I mean? And I didn't know too much about Eminem's background as a real true like hip hop person, like that he really liked the hip hop like that. So to see it in this movie, I think I heard about it first before I even saw it in the movie, and you know what I'm saying? I was happy.
That's one of the most iconic hip hop movie scenes, and the what Eminem's rhyme choices were, just the energy of the crowd, like, and that was a real, the hip hop shop and Proof and that whole Detroit scene, like they was really barring each other out over that beat. So that was a real thing for them that they documented very well in that movie.
Word, and I definitely appreciated that.
No doubt. Your lyrics.
Check.
What'd you say? Another check.
Another check.
Your lyrics on Survival of the Fittest, another great song, are super dope. And I felt like these lyrics are foundational to what hip hop has become. When worst come to worst, my people come first.
Word.
You know what I'm saying?
Word.
Shout out to Alchemist and Dilated, and you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. It's interesting about that song. I spoke to you, I said, where do you stay? You said, I stay out the way, right? But you know, on that song,
Yes.
no matter how much loot I get, I'm staying in the projects. I remember listening to that lyric. That was cap. It's cap. He feels like that now.
The whole crew was like this, and I was like, nah.
Word.
That's crazy. Thinking back on that lyric when I wrote it, when I said it, I literally meant that.
You meant that.
At the time,
You
I
looking
really
around, your perspective.
Right.
This is it.
Like, yeah, I'm staying here. Like, fuck that, I'm good. Like, you know what I mean? We was a little bit famous. I ain't had no problems, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I was still in the projects, so I was like, yeah, I'm staying here. I couldn't imagine living outside of the projects.
That's crazy.
At that time, I couldn't imagine it.
That's like a psychological hornet's nest.
Word.
I couldn't even, because you can't strive for what you can't see.
Right.
And that's why representation matters. That's why
For
it's
sure.
important for people to get out and see
sure.
things.
For
If
sure.
you don't see it, you don't know it exists.
Word.
Queensbridge is a city within a city.
Within a city.
When you realize it's one of the largest public housing in the world, right? So
It made sense at that age and that.
going across this Queensbridge is
Right.
really like going from Brooklyn to Queens. Like, it's a whole different way.
by the time you get to Getting Mines with 13, you say phase 1 executed. I'm out of the projects. So that was growth on that.
It was growth because now I'm older, and then you know, a lot of friends, dropped off, if you could even call them that. You know what I mean? A lot of the crew dropped off, and I found myself just wanting more than a lot of the people I was around.
Word. You had a question earlier. We was upstairs talking about nicknames and Wallerhead and all these type of names.
Yeah, Queensbridge brothers just have a famous thing about that. But the best part about it is that it's like sharing it with the world, making your own people famous is really unique and dope, in my opinion.
Nah, your QB was one of those places. Even I was bugging at some of the names that they would come up with. Like one of the homeboys that used to hang with us, we used to call him Free High. Yeah, and you could imagine why we called him Free High, because every time he come around, he don't pay for the weed, but he wants some weed. He want to get high for free.
Free High.
So his name was Free High. Like, you know what I'm saying?
There's
like,
one of those in every crew.
right. You know what I mean? But yeah.
20 years later, you walking down the street. Yo, Free High.
Yo, Free High.
Now, we're going to stay on the Infamous for a second. There's a lot of other things I want to ask you about, but there's so much going on this record. Eye for an Eye is like a perfect hip-hop melding of the minds. Yasin Bey, shout out to Yasin Bey. You was talking about how much you like the Black Star album. When we perform, one of the things we do is we do the hook for Eye for an Eye in the Black Star set.
Yeah.
Those drums, bro. What was up with them drums?
Yo, you know what I mean? I was a student of, Q-Tip, Large Professor, Primo, and the drums is one of those things that I really paid attention to more than anything, because I seen them doing that. You know what I mean? They used to mess with the drums a lot, so the drums was important to me, and so I just was creating drums like that sometimes.
What do you think of this style that's going on that's like ushered in by people like Alchemist and Planet Asia and of course Griselda with the no drums and getting to the loops?
At first I couldn't understand it. You know what I mean? I was like, that's lazy. You know
Where
what
the
I
drums?
mean? You know what I'm
They
saying?
even finish making a beat.
But then I got it. But then I got it. You know why I got it? Because after a while, you get fucking tired of always throwing drums to the beats. It's like, and you don't even know if you're gonna use it. You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, just loop that shit up, throw it there. Loop it up, throw it there. You know what I mean? And then after a while, if the artist coming through late, you're like, yo, what's up? No, don't throw the drums to that. Just let's rock to it. And it becomes its own genre.
Yeah. I mean, you're an MC, a classic MC, so at a certain point, I think what made Griselda successful, part of what, and Planet Asia and certain other people who did that style, is at a certain point, dudes who grew up listening to Nas, Mobb Deep, and Wu was like, I'm not even trying to be on the radio. If I get in the club, fine, I'll go through the club for a bag, but my focus is not, I need to kiss the babies and shake hands with the DJs. I just want you to hear these bars.
That's it.
And if the focus is the bars, I don't need the drums. It becomes more of a spoken word thing. Well, just listen to me. I need y'all to, and that element became appreciated. I went to a Rock Marciano, West Side Gun show, I think a Sony Hall a few years ago before the pandemic. And Green Lantern was spinning. Now, Green Lantern is a great DJ. He could do grimy New York shit. He made the Champions here for Jadakiss, but he also had moved to Atlanta at the start of the trap music, and he's a very good trap music DJ.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like Green Lantern could play all different type of styles. So when I see him DJ this party, I'm thinking he gonna keep the party live. You know what I'm saying? I could go trap, I could go New York, I'll play some Dipset, some Mobb Deep, whatever. And what was interesting was because it was a Griselda audience who didn't really care about the clubbing, he was able to play different. And what he did was he played a lot of Mobb Deep. He played a lot of the Infamous, a lot of Wu. But you know how a New York DJ or a DJ in a club will play the hook and get out, or play the hook in the verse and get out.
Right.
He played the whole song.
Wow.
And the audience was singing the whole song, and this was revolutionary to me. Beef was there. Me and Beef was standing in the back drinking wine. And I was like, yo, this audience, we were drinking wine.
Like that show, they bumping Mobb Deep.
Yeah.
And I got a glass of...
I did, because I was trying not to drink liquor that night, and I remember this, because a dude walked by me like, oh, Talib Kweli, I see you on that wine shit. I remember that. I was like, okay, I'm sitting there, pinky out, at the Griselda show. But Green Lantern, what was crazy to me is watching these kids, and not all of them is my age, some of the younger,
Yeah.
sing along with the words, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is different.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Griselda and them for ushering that back in.
Hell yeah. I mean that right there is like, all right, then now your love for hip hop is like renewed. Not like you never lost it, but sometimes when you hear the current state of things and you like, damn, you know, you don't get a chance to hear that. So for them to gravitate towards that level of hip hop that's in its essence is just like, damn, like word.
Yeah, now a song I will never get tired of and I can't get enough of is Right Back At You. Again, another monster track. Prodigy comes with a verse for the ages.
Word.
And of course, you come with fuck where you at, kid, is where you from.
Right.
Where I'm from, niggas pack nothing but the big guns. That whole banging Nas, Mobb Deep, and Wu. Like, do you ever feel like people sleep on you as a lyricist?
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
for sure. For sure, because I be writing my heart out, you know what I mean? In my mind, you know what I'm saying? But when you rapping with heavy hitters all day long, you know, it's tough, you know what I'm saying? You got to be in that ring sparring all day long.
Yeah.
Rhyming with Prodigy, you know what I'm saying? Having Raekwon and Ghost on the record, you know what I mean? It's like, you know what I'm saying? You like, look at me, like, you know what I'm saying?
Look at me. I can rhyme too.
Right. You know what I mean?
Can I say this to you? Because I don't know if you know, but this is the show about giving you the flowers. We have never heard of whack happen.
Oh,
Never.
thank you. Thank you.
Ever.
Never.
Thank you.
I don't.
Thank you.
Never. I
Thank
know
you.
all the words,
And
like
you know,
never.
most importantly, his voice. That's the key balance of like a lot of listening hip hop. There's some rappers have a voice. Prodigy got a voice. Like everybody that's special has a voice. So once you have a voice, in my opinion, and you can say something, you're good money.
And you know what's crazy about Mobb Deep is not only did they have good voices, but they were young dudes, fresh out of teenagerism,
Word.
sound like grown ass men.
Oh yeah,
Word.
100%.
I'm gonna tell you when I knew it was the truth with Mobb, I was like this. Because they went Microphone Masters versus DOS Effect. I was like this. All right, let's see. And they put the body out there. And DOS was putting in work.
Word.
They put the body.
I remember
Your
that.
versus
Word.
special.
Word. That, yeah, I loved working with DOS Effects because they was like icons to us in the hood. You know what I mean? I remember dreaming of getting on, and then to do a record with DOS, that was crazy. But you know, going back to the lyrics and being overlooked, I don't think it was a bad problem to have because I was rapping with dudes that was like heavy hitters. You know what I mean? So, you know, when any time that I rhymed, you know what I'm saying, I feel my game, I was on my A game because I used to just be rapping along with these heavyweights.
Yeah, you're like, go ahead and sleep on me.
Word, straight up.
Don't you think also about because you're a producer, also they trying to put you in that box too? Because you're because you're a really good producer. So they'll be like, I think he's a better producer than a rapper type shit, right?
You know, at times it's almost like they don't acknowledge either both. Because I think that when I rhyme, they forget that I make beats. You know what I'm saying? When I make the beats, they forget that I rhyme.
That's how
like, you know what I'm
that's
saying?
how good you are,
So
though.
it's like everything's canceling everything out.
That's how you too good.
Wow, yeah.
It's also the wrong people at giving analysis because when you check out the composition without your addition to it, the song not as dope.
Right.
So
I
you
agree.
really need the full package. You need the music as well as your lyrics because it takes a full package for there to be a Mobb Deep. It's not just people not really looking at it.
Word. Now, on this show, a name that comes up a lot is Chris Lighty. And we like to document his history from road managing from the Jungle Brothers and being involved in the start of Native Tongues and the Violators holding down Red Alert to him making a splash in the music business with artists like yourself. Can you share with us your memories of Violator and Chris Lighty?
My memories of Violator and Chris Lighty are good memories. You know, Chris helped us out a lot. You know, he took us to, you know, different levels, different heights that we probably wouldn't have gotten to if Chris wasn't involved. You know, he was hands-on, he cared. Violator was a very professional management team, you know what I mean? And I remember Chris Lighty from the Jungle Brothers, Baby Chris.
Right.
You know what I mean? I remember
Road
him.
manager Chris, Baby Band.
Yeah, Baby Band Chris. I remember him from that. And Chris Lighty was just like super intelligent, and he knew hip hop like the back of his hands. You know what I mean? So happy to have been able to work with Chris. You know, another brother I miss.
No doubt.
If he was here today, I'd be calling him, like, asking for his advice, you know?
Right. Rest in peace, Chris Lighty. One of my favorite Mobb Deep records is It's Mine with Nas. Shout out to Nasty Nas. Man, when Nas and Mobb Deep link up, it's like magic, bro.
Talk about the video.
The video is crazy.
It looked like it was Hype Williams. It looked like a $2 million budget.
It probably cost that much.
Right. Hype put about $1 million in his pocket.
Right.
Hype, you gotta come on the show. I'm just joking, Hype Williams. But it had to look cinematic because you sampling Scarface. And talk to us a little bit about not just the influence of Scarface, but more than any group, Mobb Deep brought the whole cinematic gangster mob movie shit to wax. So from Scarface to Once Upon a Time in America to Godfather Part 3.
Right.
Tell me how gangster movies and the music and the sounds in the gangster movies inspired you.
I mean, you know, the way they inspired me, because it's like a lot of times those stories are like Rag the Riches stories, right? You know what I'm saying? You see Tony Montana came from nothing, went to blow up, you know, basically when
the world is yours.
Yeah, the world is yours,
Right.
you know what I mean? And the hood is the same way, right? You know, dudes on the corner trying to sell until they can make it to a key, and then they, you know, living this extravagant life. And hip hop, you know, you start off small, you want to be a big success story. So just watching it, you watching it over and over and over and over again, and then I just started noticing the music, and I was like, I'm surprised nobody never sampled that shit before. Like,
Right.
I mean, I'm really, really, really was truly surprised that nobody never sampled it. But I had it in my head with the Bonita Apple drums, and I just put that
What's
shit
the name
together.
of that dude? Giorgio
Murata or something like that.
Moroder? I don't know how
yeah,
to say it.
yeah.
Say it?
Moroder, yeah.
Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, I never
Giorgio
could pronounce
Moroder.
it. Yeah.
Where's
yeah.
he from?
I think it's
He's Italian. That's why you gotta
Italy.
say the shit.
Yeah.
The Italian in the room was like, it's Moroder. Now, I got a friend named Sporty that I grew up with. You know Sporty, right? This is my man I grew up with. He ended up, nowadays, he's like running in Brooklyn for city council as a Republican. He's like a Trump dude.
Okay.
It's fucked up. It's fucked up. This nigga's, it's the worst. It's the worst with this shit. Fucking Sporty. But back then, I'll never forget, it was me, Rubik's Juju, my man Lewis, and Sporty, sitting, listening to Mobb Deep music. Hell on Earth, it just came out. And we smoking in my basement, in my parents' basement, and we vibing out. And Sporty was like, yo, we have to stop listening to this. I'm like, why? He's like, this devil music. Y'all niggas is evil and worshiping the devil. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, the music is too violent and dark. I'm like, yo, Sporty is art. Like, you don't, I'll never forget that. He turned it off. Like, we have to stop listening. It started preaching to us. So
Nobody want to hear that shit.
That's funny.
I was like, tell me you don't get art without telling me you don't get art. But did people ever expect y'all to be so violent and dark because of some of the stuff that was represented in the music?
Nah, I don't think people expected it. But, you know, because for a little while, you know, we couldn't even get a deal because of it, because we were so young and we was like, you know, the lyrics was explicit and violent and all of that. We couldn't get a deal. But, you know, later on we did, you know, with Loud Records, they just, you know, gave us free reign. But, I you know, I'm not sure if people expected it, but I do think it kind of like, you know, stopped us from going through certain doors, you know what I mean, certain times. And you know how this industry you like to pick and choose. And, you know, so we had a hard time with it.
Word. Shout out to the Lil Duns.
Word.
I say that because of on Quiet Storm, and the remix Prodigy's intro gives the context for why the lyrics are so dark. You know, niggas is dead and shit. Some real shit. And what he's doing is in the coded language of the streets, he's talking about mental health and why we are the way we are. Shout out to Brady Watt. You know, we perform Quiet Storm with my band. We probably do it tonight. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a part of our set.
No doubt.
And of course, Little Kim went crazy on the remix.
Yeah.
That kind of put Kim back in the position that she deserved to be in. Because I think people was kind of sleeping on Kim or giving her a hard time at that point. And her on the Quiet Storm remix put her right back. So thank you for doing that record.
Oh, man. Thank you to Kim, like, for even, you know, doing it with us. Word.
And speaking of like that mental health aspect of it, you spoke in interviews about having social anxiety and going to therapy about it. On Infamy, Getaway, which is a great record. I feel like that's the beginning of y'all starting to deal with this. Like on Hell on Earth, you start to hear Prodigy become a little bit more conscious, and he start talking about certain stuff. You're like, oh, these brothers got knowledge.
Right.
And then by Infamy, which I think is this a conscious choice? I feel like you go first on every song on the album.
You know what? I just was finishing my lyrics faster.
He was in the lab.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like we set it up like that, but it was, whoever finished they rhyme first hit the booth. You know what I mean? So I was my pen was just going crazy. So
I'm glad you broke that down. But yeah, with the social anxiety, I speak to the importance of going to therapy because it really helped you out. Right?
Yeah, it did help me out because it got a chance to me to face certain fears that really didn't exist. You know what I mean? It was just me speculating in my head all the time and, not wanting to really be around crowds too much. You know what I mean? And plus, when you growing up in the hood and you forced to be around so many people, it's like, after a while you want to become a recluse. So me personally, you know what I mean? And I just, I stayed away from crowds for a long time.
Well, thank you for coming out to this crowd.
No doubt.
And doing this with us. The Learning is such a great beat. The Burn. Shout out to
Thank
Big
you.
Noid.
Yes.
He killed that as he does. Like, you don't think I live a pop life now. Wait, you could get pop right now.
I remember when I heard that on Flex play that a million times when it first came out. And I was like, oh, what is this? It's like, because you haven't heard Mobb in a minute, and it came out, I'm like, they did it again.
They did it again.
I love to hear that shit.
Shout out to K Slay as well.
Oh, yeah.
Word.
K Slay, but that song got revamped as a classic because Flex put it on for Black Thought, and he does this freestyle, and it becomes the best freestyle of all time.
Word.
Over your beat.
He went crazy.
What'd you think when you first heard that? What was going on?
I just was like, God damn, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
The first time we heard 400 bars.
but Black Thought is a superhero. You know what I mean?
I
Not
agree.
even because he did it over that beat, but the brother is ill with the fucking lyrics. You know what I'm saying? He's like a lyrical genius. You know what I'm saying? And man, all y'all, you know what I'm saying? You, Most Def is like my favorite lyricist, and I'm not even saying that because I'm here. I really mean that. Like
I appreciate that.
You know what I'm saying? I fuck with Black Star. I fuck with Black Thought, and the Roots. Yeah, that's my
Relax.
shit.
Philly, relax.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to me that your tracks and your beats represent hip hop so much that from Shook Ones and 8 Mile to Black Thought and Flex, they represent these tentpole moments in our culture where it's like, okay, if we really want to represent hip hop, we got to get on one of these Havoc beats. We got to get on one of these beats. Yeah, that's dope, man.
That's catalog of beats that they got.
Right. Now, Throw Your Hands finds you working with Kanye West,
Right.
a.k.a. Ye.
Right.
One of my
Right.
good friends.
Let's go. Hold on.
Well, Kanye loves Hitler. You know what I'm saying? But that's not what we're here to talk about. This leads you to producing Real Friends. Segue. And Famous, which Real Friends is a great beat. People don't know.
Yeah.
I thought it was, that's fire.
This is, I don't think people give you enough props for this. I mean, Famous is such a great beat. Real Friends such a great beat, but you also did Why by Jadakiss. You also did Last Days by the Notorious B.I.G. What are your favorite tracks that you've done outside of Mobb Deep?
The favorite tracks that I've done outside of Mobb Deep, I will have to say, a few records that I did for 50, and definitely Why. Why? Because a lot of people didn't even know that I did the track. You know what I mean? And that's one of those records that, Jadakiss went platinum with that effort. You know what I'm saying? With that album. I'm not saying that the song made him go platinum, but
I mean, it was big. Anthony Hamilton sounded great on it. The remix was crazy.
right, yeah. So that's definitely one of my favorite records that I produced outside of Mobb Deep.
Word up. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't feel like you, by name, were directly targeted in the Jay-Z Prodigy beef.
Right.
But what was going through your head when that was happening?
I was like, damn. You know what I'm saying? Like, I never wanted beef with Jay-Z, you know what I'm saying? Because he's somebody that, throughout my career and throughout his career, somebody that I admired, you know what I mean? I loved his work ethic. I loved his music. So to end up him kind of like beefing with Prodigy and the spillover was Mobb Deep, it was like, it was kind of in my mind, it was kind of fucked up. You know what I mean? I wasn't mad at Jay or nothing like that, but it would be one of those things, like if I saw Jay, it's like I feel like I got beef with somebody I don't got beef with. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's just a corny, real straight corny feeling. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you know what I mean, I had to stand with my comrade, you know what I mean, and have his back, you know what I mean? And I did, you know what I mean? And even Prodigy knows that, you know, I was like, damn, you know what I'm saying? That's one of those things that we really don't want. But we ended up speaking with Jay, you know, anyway, and working with him indirectly with an artist that he wanted us to work with. So that was kind of squashed. But, you know, at the end of the day, to answer your question, it wasn't a good feeling.
That's the craziest thing about beef is that the worst beef is when you beefing over something that you don't actually feel.
Right.
Like, I don't actually feel this way. Y'all, you angry about me at me about something I don't actually feel.
Right.
Because that's what that Connecticut shit is. You know what I'm saying? Like, on this podcast, I was joking and I was like, man, fuck Connecticut. And a bunch of Connecticut rappers got mad and made diss records.
Right.
And I'm like, yo, I don't really mean that.
Right.
So y'all angry at me for something that like if I don't imply shit and I say what I mean. If I meant that, I would stand on it.
Right.
But it's not, I can't stand on that.
Right.
New York City was live at that time. You know, Prodigy was live. You know, Nas was live. Queens was live. Queens get the money. Ask Russell Simmons. How did you meet up with 50 and end up working with G Unit then?
Well, you know, before 50 kind of like came out and before Loud kind of folded, I was about to start working on a solo album that never happened, right? We was working on some Mobb Deep music, but then I started working on Havoc songs. And 50 was bubbling on the mixtape scene, you know what I mean? And he was one of my favorite MCs at the time. So I told Chris Lighty, like, yo, I want to get this dude 50 Cent on, you know what I'm saying, one of my records. And come to find out that Chris Lighty was managing him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't even know that because he got him in the studio the next day. So we did like 2 songs. That was that. And 50 told me that he was going to meet with Eminem, like, or whatever, and Dr. Dre. I was like, oh, shit, that's going to be crazy. So that was that. And then, you know, 2 years later, I didn't see 50 after that. You know what I mean? 2 years later, he became, you know, 50 Cent, huge, large. And then things was happening with Mobb Deep. Loud folded. We signed a job. We sold 150.
Did you ever get at Britney?
Nah, I never got the chance. I never got the chance.
Because that's why y'all signed a job. I'm just saying.
That would have been perfect. That would have been perfect too, right? That was yeah, I said that in the lyric. Yeah, I meant it too, but nah, I'm only kidding. So we sold 150,000 records on Job. That wasn't good enough for Job, but we know today that was magnificent, right? 150,000 records out the gate. Job dropped us, and then 50 gave me a call on my phone like maybe a couple of weeks later and was like, yo, this 50, I thought it was somebody was just playing a prank, but it was him. He said he wanted to sign us. One thing led to another, and we signed to G Unit.
I feel like that was a good partnership.
I liked it.
Yeah, I feel like G Unit, that energy, you know, came from that Mobb Deep energy. So it was like paying it forward. It's like, yo, or paying it backward or whatever. Like,
love is always love. The whole time he's been sitting there, every story he's told, it's 360 and it all revolves around love.
Now, Prodigy ended up going to jail. The Safest Crack project. That's sort of y'all talking about this. Got the interviews with Envy and dealing with this. How did him getting locked up at that time affect the group?
You know, without P, there is no Mobb Deep, right? So, you know, that was like, it was unfortunate, but more than, you know, fuck the group, I felt bad that my bro was going to jail.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, he got sickle cell, he got to go to jail, you know what I mean? I just felt bad because at first he was trying to beat the charge, but I was like, you know, like, I don't know, son, because, you know, you got caught with a couple of other things before, and I don't think they having it this time. And, you know, whatever, the ramifications of the situation just didn't look too good. And he went to jail. You know what I mean? That was tough on everybody. You know what I mean? You know, so, you know, we was just out here just doing what we could do while he was gone. You know what I mean?
He stayed busy though while locked up.
Yeah, apparently, you know what I'm saying?
more
He
than a
came
lot
out
of
with a
people.
whole book. You know what I'm saying? Word.
He was doing interviews and the whole shit.
Yeah.
In the studio, he said, "No, I'm headed to the publisher.
Word.
Print this."
Word. He was, when he got locked up for that time, he was with Alchemist at the time, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to Alchemist. You and him got a great album together.
Thank you.
The Smooth Ride shit is dope. Buck 50s and Bullet Wounds. That shit is, whew.
Word.
I like that shit.
Al's a beast.
Yeah. Shout out to Flea Lord. The project In the Name of Prodigy go hard.
Yeah.
And it's very impressive because he did 12 albums that year.
Yeah.
That was the 12th one.
Yeah.
And it still was fresh and vibrant. And you got Conway and Raekwon and Busta. Shout out to Ransom. He on that. Me and Ransom got one. Ransom, what's up? Let's get that one out. But you started doing these records with Dark Low and Flea Lord and Styles P, which is a beautiful album, doing whole albums with people. What made you start doing that?
Just to be more active, and plus those are artists that I respected. I respected their skill level, and all as artists. I respected them and what they was trying to do, and I wanted to kind of be a little bit more active because I got like a ton of beats in my computer just sitting there collecting dust. So I'm like, man, put these shits to use. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the world is better for it because these are incredible
real.
projects, especially that record banner with Styles P. Styles P, of course, me and him got a group together. He's the hardest out. That Hymn to Him is crazy.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
Nightmares to Dreams. These are good records, big records. And I encourage hip hop fans, if they're not up on this album,
Check
to
that
listen to
out.
this album. It's been an honor sitting with you. I just want to know what else you got next for the people.
Well, I'm always working, constantly working. I got a joint with Method Man coming out soon.
It's an album?
Yeah, album. I produced the whole album. You know what I mean?
Excuse me. Done.
Huh? Oh yeah. I did the gutter with RJ Payne and Razkaz and Razkaz. I got that.
Razkaz is just hovering around this whole site.
And I'm actively working on a Mobb Deep album now as we speak.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it Prodigy vocals?
The family blessed me with a bunch of vocals, and as soon as I leave here, I'm going back to work.
That's big
to work
news.
on that. Yeah.
Well, the People's Party is happy to have the legend, the icon, Havoc
Thank you.
in the house.
Thank you, man. Thank you.